Good evening guys, and welcome to my third video of my Guide to series. Today we will be looking at board vision. And board vision is really important because it allows you to see moves that fit into tighter places on the board to score more points, and it's really possible that your opponent may just not see them. So I think this is a really important skill to have, and I'm going to show you I'm going to show you two examples of boards that I've come across where board vision is really important, and I'm going to try to explain to you what goes through what should go through your head when you think of board vision. So without further ado, let's get it going. Okay, so this first board was a game that I had on ISC with my friend Sanchit, the current World Youth Scrabble champion Sanchit. This was a game we probably had like a couple of years ago. So this was his scenario. Now, ignore the fact that he has a playable bonus here. It's gullied, making tick. But what if you don't see the bonus? What is your other option to do here? So one of the first things you do is you look around the board and you think, right, where am I going to score points? Because, points and stuff, they're all really important. So on this board particularly, I'm not sure how it happened, but we don't have very many places to score. We've got this V over here, but having the U is really bad and it doesn't really work. You've got places like this I of Fuji or this H. Maybe if you could extend NEP. I mean, there aren't really very many places to score on this board, are there? I mean, you'd be forgiven for playing a word like gull just down here in column 13. But what if I told you there was a move that scored considerably more points? Well, there is, if you can see it. Now, when I try to look for plays like this, I just look for essentially just blocks of letters. Like, I'm talking about 10E here, square 10E. So what letters on your rack go in there? Well, G goes in there. Okay, so after we've got the G, what I try to do is build up the word rather than trying to make a word fit, because if I can build up the word, it should be much easier for me to find than if I try and find a word and try and put it in there. It's kind of like a square pegs in round holes kind of thing. You don't want to try and force a word to fit in that place. You want to try and just try and slowly get it in, and then if it doesn't work, you haven't essentially broken it. So after the G goes here, what goes between EA and X? A U does, so you've then got a word beginning with GU. Okay, well, a vowel has to come here in 10G, so you're only left with I and E. So you could put the E there, but of course the I still works. You can make an even longer word, so you could GUI. What goes here? L or D? L or D. Either's fine. And then here you've got D or E. So by building up the word as I've gone along, I can have a word that begins GUILD, so I could fit guild in there. Or maybe I could play GUIDE. I could fit guide in there as well. So board vision is, in this situation, not discounting an area of the board because it is way too tight. You want to try and explore every single area of the board. Don't discount an area just because you feel like, yeah, nothing will go there. I don't think it will anyway. Just always look. It's worth spending 5 seconds looking at an area and saying, do I have letters that go there? Yeah, no. It's worth looking because you never really know what you're missing. And I can't remember what happened here, but I think in this situation Sanchit missed the bingo, and I'm not entirely sure he found the neat slot in either. that's situation number 1, where we can fit words in. Situation number 2 is over here. Oh, my webcam's moved. I should have tried to put that in the right place. Oh well. If you'd had seen if you'd seen my APSP Master series, this is a game from the APSP Master series, game number 2, which involved a really interesting board vision situation that is really important to remember. So, first of all, we're identifying our hotspots. Where are the hotspots? You've got this big F2 hotspot over here. This big F2. You can see the Y scores a ton of points over here, and you can play a word like Yagi down here that scores way too many points. You've also then got this hotspot down here. You could also play Yagi down here. That scores also a ton of points. You know, maybe you can maximize the Y here. It's just a hotspot. Just identify your hotspots. At least that's what I do. If you identify your hotspots, you're able to say, right, I don't need to look at anywhere else, and I need to eliminate each of these hotspots one by one. Ideally, you could also have down here, but that's really risky, and you probably wouldn't take that. But what if I told you there was a 50+ point play here? We surprised? Board vision. So, one of the things that you learn as you progress through the divisions is all these hooks, all these different hooks to words that you may have never heard of before. And one of the important things in this case is the hook to klutz. Ooh, cursor, klutz. Klutz takes a Y. Now, of course, when klutz is first played, you're like, yeah, klutz takes a Y, it's fine. And then when it comes to you actually getting the Y, you've potentially forgotten about it. Or maybe klutz was played and you just were like, well, can't put the Y there because it's really restrictive down column L and stuff. But if you actually look, you really look, because if you discount that the Y goes here, you know, you may not even see it. So if we build up the word like we did before, you've got to put the Y here at L1, and then your only letters that go before A are T and A, and you're really only going to put the A there. Your only letter that goes before the U now, is the G. And then finally, it's I or A, and it's going to be the I. So in this case, if you've actually worked out that that is a nice hotspot for potential for scoring, you don't have to have the letters for it, just identify that it has the potential to score. And hopefully that means that you look at it, you come back to it, you revisit it, you think, what good letters go there, what word would fit in there, and building up the word as you go along is a really neat way of quickly finding out if something goes in that place. So like with my previous example, if I go back to it, building up the word as you go along, for me, it's much easier to fit a word in the scoring hotspot than it is to actually try and find like a 4 or 5 letter word in your rack and just try and kind of jam it in. The whole square pegs, round holes thing. So in conclusion, to summarise all these points that I've made during this video, identify your hotspots. Make sure you've scanned the board and worked out where the potential for scoring is. Even if it's only like 20 points, keep it in your memory banks, make sure you remember, and don't forget that they're there. Just keep looking for the hotspots. Point number 2, square pegs, round holes. Don't try and force your word to fit in these hotspots you've identified, because you might waste a lot of time trying to make the word fit when it really doesn't. Build the word up as you go along. Which brings me to point 3, 1 letter at a time. Build these plays up just 1 letter at a time. Once you've built them up, 1 letter at a time, you may find that the word you're seeking is more easily visible to you. It just jumps out at you. Like with the guide example. Once you put the G and the U and the I in there, it's quite obvious it was guide or guild. And then you just have to choose between the two. And my final point is no elimination. Don't just ignore areas of the board because you think that there's nothing there. Only eliminate those potential places when you know for certain that there's nothing there. Because it's quite possible that the floater you seek for your bonus is surrounded by a load of other letters. That means you need to create 3 or 4 smaller words in order to be able to create your bonus. And if you don't have good board vision, you may never have found that word in the first place. So thank you for listening to my short video on board vision, and stay tuned for my next video.